Hey, thanks for joining us on another episode of Triple Play. Please remember to
Like and subscribe. Or you can subscribe and then like. Whatever you want, really. Just do those two things in any order.
and just so that you know, my wife actually looked up what it is in Spanish and sent it to me, so I have to get that to you because you were one day going to say it like,
Subscribe?
yeah,
I would imagine it's just like
subscribe.
subscribe.
Yeah, it was like how you say like and subscribe in Spanish for what we're doing because there's different words. My daughter was
Yeah.
educated me on the Spanish, and I was like, okay.
Gusta.
I don't know. There was like
Gusta is
3 or 4
like
different ones. So,
like a command, Gusta.
well, all that said, don't forget also to support those who have helped us. Remember to follow Andy McCollum and Resource One. You can give their team a call if you have any financial planning needs at 636-458-1798. And Chris over at CS Design at 573-436-3717. They did our logo, our intro. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. We've got, if all goes well, we're going to have 30 devotionals cut, little 10-minute devotionals for you guys. We got a guy who's helped working with us on those, and I think you're going to enjoy a little morning or evening drive clips to get a little bit of God's Word each day. We've got some really cool guests coming up. We were hoping to get Trace on, hopefully in the next, sometime this week, right? And get a little bit maybe on the World Baseball Classic if all goes well.
Yeah, we're playing. We'll plan on Thursday. Depending on his schedule, he hasn't gotten his schedule today because
Okay.
he just started. He'll let us know. We'll plan on Thursday. If worst comes to worst, we'll do it next Tuesday.
Okay. And then we have Kyle with a sports ministry that he was a top executive moving up the ladder and left it all. We're going to get to hear his story and hear about their big change in their ministry as well. But they have been doing sports camps for youth who in a lot of places that maybe don't have a dad or somebody to kind of help them learn sports even. So they provide the balls and all. They've got a lot of cool sponsors, people like I know Albert and Jackie Joyner. There's a whole slew of them that help sponsor their vision, and they do a lot of trips. They just got back from Dominican Republic again this last weekend. So looking forward to hearing Kyle speak. We're going to still get Ray in here talking about his journey from the White House over. We got, I don't know if I already said it yet, but Dave's Racing is going to be on here to talk about street racing and some of the stuff that his channel does. We'll get that in here. Still got fishing coming. We're going to have Mitch in with top set of rod and reels and all of his stuff that he does with the bass fishing. We're going to learn a little bit, hopefully, maybe be a little bit better at what we do. But he's with Cash and Rods, so we're going to hear about that and some of the things that they do. So we got a lot of...
Hopefully he knows something about taking care of like little lakes because we got a little lake in our neighborhood, and I want to know all the ways to get those fish bigger.
There you go. Well, hopefully I'm sure he'll have us some good input on that. So, long story short, we've got a lot of good people coming down the pipe. So, for our viewers, keep watching. And as the season progresses, maybe even we can get a few of the players that you know as they come through St. Louis to swing in here for a few minutes and say hi. So,
yeah, the more guests we can get on, the more opportunity we have to. Like we got these balls that my dad signed for us that we're gonna give away. So we'll have some cool giveaways. As you know, stick with us.
yeah, we're gonna have some fun stuff.
Fan involvement, fan engagement. So we're just getting started. We're just building this thing. So
absolutely, we're gonna do some Twitter Spaces we were just talking about. We got what was the website. The website's gonna be hopefully coming out in the next week or two. There'll be stuff that you guys can get on there and support us and. Hopefully we'll eventually have some limited stuff that we won't put out on like YouTube or any of those places. It'll be unique to just our website. So if you guys want to get some, maybe a little extra time, maybe even like a Q&A with like Scott and his dad and things like that, we might have some of that kind of stuff available. So there's going to be, I think, some fun stuff. Same thing with Andy McCollum. I know he'll gladly jump in and help a little bit with that. For those who may be into Star Wars, hopefully we're going to do some stuff with a couple of fans on that have a YouTube page. So I think there's going to be a lot of things that are coming down. Oh, another one I'm working on right now, I think it's going to happen, is a former contestant with Survivor. So
seriously,
yeah. She now sings Christian music, and I'm trying
Yeah,
to
that'd be
work
cool.
some connections. So keep your eyes and ears out. I've got a couple of my music guys down in Nashville. We've been talking about maybe getting a few of their artists to swing by here. Some of them are some big Christian artists. A couple of them are country. So
That
you
just
know,
gave me an idea. I know a guy that does Christian rap. I'm gonna ask him.
yeah. I mean, we got a lot. All I can say is I've been reaching out to a lot of the contacts I've had over the last 10, 15 years. We're getting a lot of cool people. That are wanting to be a part of it. It's just a matter of working out the timing when they can. But hopefully, over the next few months, we'll get some of these guys through here more and more, and have some interesting conversations. Uh, so, um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
well, there's
There's
it's
stuff in the pipeline.
a lot of stuff in the pipeline. So
You want to jump in today? You want to jump in? Do we have anything else?
no, no, I know
I
what I
cut
want to
you off.
do. Hold on here, see if I can.
Know what it takes. 2-1. Oh my God! Hits Turner. Look out! Oh no! Oh no! Please be more helmet. No, that's blood. Oh no!
Well, what?
Did you? Now that you've seen that, that was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I know you played with Justin. He's not a guy that usually takes things pretty lightly. I mean, it looked like it hurt.
No. Well, if you can see, I think there's a zoomed in video of this, and you could see like when he gets down to the ground, you could see like the reaction his body has to the trauma. Like his fingers get stiff for a second, and but there's also a close up. I don't know if you want to dig this deep, audience members, but there's a video of his face when he's like hunched over, and it's like a river of blood
Oh
coming.
yeah, they talk about it on the full clip. I did not put that
So
on.
this happened at, I'd imagine, 12 o'clock our time. Okay, so this
Yeah.
was like in the afternoon. I texted him at 7:30 that night. So that was the same night, just checking in on him. He said, I just stopped bleeding 30 minutes ago. So he had been bleeding from that area for 6+ hours.
Wow.
That's
Well, let him know we're thinking of
yeah,
him. We're
yeah,
praying
I
for
will.
him, and he's one of the guys I really want to get on here sometime because I like him a
Oh
lot.
yeah,
He's
we can get him
Turner
on.
is a fun player. I've always enjoyed his the way he played the game. He's a gritty player.
Yeah, but
Kinda-
he's like a what you would describe as like a pro's pro. Like he's like a pro among pros.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that. Some people are just much more nitty or grittier than other players. He just seems to play with that kind of nitty gritty, which is, why I think the Dodgers for a long time did really well. He's one of the reasons I'm a little bit optimistic on the Red Sox this season, just because a guy like him in that lineup and on that field, he pumps the players around him. He makes players around him better.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, when you have that's what really good teams have. Somebody that's still good and everybody watches what they do. They just watch. They don't do stuff that nobody does stuff in that locker room that Justin Turner wouldn't agree with.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? So,
I hear you. Let me ask you a couple questions. Thinking about baseball and where we're at right now. First of all, we got spring training. Have you watched much in the past few weeks? Have you caught anything?
I watch the highlights. I usually do a end of day Twitter just
Scour it.
Yeah, just suck up all the information. That's how I came across this and other things like this. But I haven't been like I didn't. I'm not gonna watch Boston versus Detroit
No.
in March for 9 innings. But
I kind of usually put them on in the front television here at the
yeah.
office, and I'll kind of listen in throughout the day if I'm not intensely into a podcast. So sometimes I catch them in the afternoon. And I definitely try to follow the Cardinal ones when they're on, but they're actually playing the Tigers right now.
Yeah,
So.
I think spring training is for like your chance to see if you're like a true fan. Like if you're a true fan of the Cardinals, you're gonna watch some spring training game, probably to watch the younger guys. You're not really concerned too much with Paul's doing. It doesn't matter if he hits 900 or 9 in
Right.
spring training.
Some people get worked up over that. I mean, we were talking about that last year with Tommy Edman, and I mean, he was a great. I mean, I guess he only had 1 year, but you could tell he was a professional. I mean, I wasn't worried about that.
Yeah, and we talked about this with my dad. Spring training is just so. I think the fans' perspective versus a player's perspective. I mean, I don't know if my dad mentioned it, but I remember he mentioned it to me that 1 year. Gosh, I don't remember what year it is, but he told me in like 1992 he went to spring training and just made a commitment. He wasn't going to swing the bat till he got to 2 strikes. So for 30 straight days or 30 games, however many at bats it is, he just took till he got 2 strikes. And so he didn't tell anybody. Nobody asked him. So there's just things that people are doing that.
I kind of usually, if I hear a player talk about something like, hey, I'm working on this, a
yes.
sinker ball, or I'm adding this to my arsenal, I'll kind of look for that. That's one of the things that I kind of look at to see how sharp they are.
Absolutely.
There's certain pitches that I think if a pitcher can put in their arsenal, really helps them out. A few of them are kind of dying off these days, it seems like. It's an interesting time in baseball, but I think a few of them may come back. One of the things that for the Cardinals yesterday, I'll talk about them for a second. I don't know if you paid attention, but yesterday Flaherty did pitch. We talked about him a little bit on our last the episode with your dad, and so we had that, and he pitched pretty well. I will say his velocity still seemed, even though he was sharp on his pitches, his velocity still seems down a little bit. That's really been my major concern when I look at him going into the season. Last year he was down. Not a ton, but a couple miles an hour. Now, that doesn't mean a guy can't compensate and still get swing and miss stuff, but when you're kind of known for being up there in the high 90s and you're going from 99, 98 down to like a 96.
Yeah. It could be. It's just spring.
Well, he was recovering. Yeah, he was recovering from injury last year.
This is what you call like building up. Building up stamina, building up.
But that's why I said I kind of take it as that was an area of concern coming out of last year. He only came back for a few games last year, so can he build on that this year? Because I think that might make the difference of some of his success. The other guy I was impressed with, which we knew, when the Cardinals signed him last year, they knew what they were getting, is Steven Matz, but he was kind of injured, and that kind of threw things off. Hopefully this year he's healthy and they get a full season out of him. He obviously
he has potential. He can be good. I've seen him when he's good. He can be good.
Well, he's a ground ball guy. He's a ground ball guy, and a team like the Cardinals with Arenado on one side and Edman and Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, that's the kind of guy who's going to thrive in this kind of environment.
But you would get back on Flaherty. You're saying he's on like 96. That maybe 90, like 99 is not good. Like, you've been getting injured. Let's maybe get away from the 99 and see if you can be successful at 96 healthy.
Yeah, again, I just had noticed last year when he seemed a little more hittable. That was one of the things I noticed, is that his velocity was down. Not majorly, just, when you're watching, you're seeing a couple of miles an hour.
If you throw 96, you have the potential to throw to get people out.
Yeah.
Successful.
Again, as I said, he very well could. He had a good inning yesterday, so I think he pitched 3 innings and did really well. Matt's pitched several innings and did really well, so no complaints. Hopefully they build on that success throughout spring training and continue to be crisp and sharp. And then, for guys like that, it's really more to me. I'm not even worried about if they give up a bunch of runs. Again, when I look at spring training like a Flaherty, even if he'd given up 8 runs yesterday, even though he didn't, it would have been. Was he hitting his targets? Was he, where was he in the plate discipline?
Right.
How sharp was he? Were those crisp? Because again, you're tinkering, right? I mean, if you're a good pitcher, you're tinkering a little bit. You're trying to see how close to the edge you can get and get the call sometimes. Get a feel for maybe a little bit of the umps too, for as you go into the season, seeing how maybe they're going to call the strikes and balls. So
yeah. Also, I know we're talking about this just because we have to, but the rhythm of the game's changed, so that the pace of the pitcher's quicker, everything's quicker. So there's big changes. What do you think about? I just had this thought. I'm still looking at Justin Turner's face.
Yeah, go ahead.
How that's going to affect him hitting? I mean, it could.
Oh, sure.
I've never been hit in the face, but I'd imagine there's a chance that if I get hit in the face and I need 16 stitches, I might not be so comfortable next time I go up to the plate.
Yeah, he's a professional. I think he'll get over it, but I'm sure at least the next few, and while it's healing, you're going to be a little more sensitive to it, right? I mean, you're going to not want to get hit there again. I mean, can you imagine if he gets hit again in there?
That's what my point is.
Do you think he'll wear maybe some face protection, like maybe a little one of those helmets that kind of come down a little bit, maybe?
I would imagine, but I mean, that's the same thing happens with pitchers and stuff that get the yips. Like, they don't want to be scared to throw the ball, but they are.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Know. There's just something to keep an eye out.
I want to go back to Flaherty too. One of the things that I was going to tell you when we had the conversation with your dad, and we had that. I mean, it was good conversation. One of the questions I actually had for him, because he was saying, hey, you can't judge a guy's off field performance with his on-field performance.
Right.
But one of the things I thought about that was unique to him was that his off-field performance was still targeted at people within his own team and people at in the MLB. So it's not like he was doing this and it was unaffecting other people. But one of the things that bothered me about him was the fact that he called out the guys on the Rays and the fact that he put pressure on the players on the Cardinals at one point. You know, some of his stuff has been at players, you know what I'm saying, and not necessarily. Of course, I mean, it's not like we played a Rays a bunch anyway, so maybe it's not a big deal. But you know, just that, you know, when you're kind of targeting, when an MLB player kind of targets MLB players, it's kind of the reason why a lot of MLB players are sour on Bauer, even though he was proved innocent. You know, he did his antics, and a certain amount of players are not very sympathetic to him. Or we talked about Josh from the Yankees, who's the guy who came up with you a little bit. He's nitty gritty, but he's kind of got a chip on his shoulder a lot, and always seems to be making comments. Oh,
Josh.
am I thinking the wrong name? Maybe not Josh. Hold on.
Oh, the former MVP guy.
Yeah. With Toronto.
Who?
He was with Toronto.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, former MVP.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just can't think of his name, but I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't very sympathetic to him because of the attitude and the chip on his shoulder.
Well, yeah, but there's also there's the difference to that is that the former MVP guy we're talking about, he's like you hate to play against him, but he's such like when he's on the Yankees, like he's a Yankee, like he'll fight for you.
Oh yeah.
Well, Bauer, I know because I played against him. Maybe I was never on the same team, but I talked to people who was on the team. It's like a false sense of team. Really, everybody kind of still knows it's the Trevor Bauer show.
Gotcha.
So, you know the difference there. So
Yeah.
you know, I don't know.
Again, you know, and I'm not saying it about Flaherty. Maybe it won't affect him, but it's just one of those things that, you know, I wonder when I was thinking about your dad and kind of playing back our conversation. I wonder if that would change a little bit of what he thought. Because, again, it's different when it's off-field and on-field, but it's a little different when your off-field starts to – it's that whole thing when we're talking about cheering Jesus. If every time you met a player on your team, every day they're like, have you made that decision yet?
Yeah.
Have you made that decision yet? You know, the kind of – or if you had somebody on your team that was like, hey, I don't like Christians. And, you know, like that would kind of be like there'd be a little bit of a weirdness in the locker room, you know?
Yes, there is. But maybe this is a wrong statement, but this is what I'm thinking. People that are going to be distracted by things off the field will always be distracted by things off the field.
That's true.
Period. People that can go out and cross the lines and not be distracted are people that will go across the line and not be distracted. So the fact
Fair
that
enough.
maybe Flaherty is the agitator of the off the field distractions, that off the field distractions is going to affect those people that are going to be affected by anything.
That's true. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's everybody acts a little differently. It's a little different too when it's calling out somebody on another team. You know, like I mean, it kind of maybe it'll rile them up in a good way. I don't know. I mean, again, you know, there are team rivalries, and maybe that's. But I just was thinking. I kind of was thinking back to some of the comments, and that came to me. So you know, we've had a.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. But I just think that people that get distracted are gonna they're gonna find something to get distracted about.
Sure. All right. Well, now today starts another fun one. We were just talking about one of the players that's coming out, but we got the World Baseball Classic. You know. Oh, wait a second. Before we go there, spring training. Has anybody stood out to you? I was going to ask you that. While you're watching all those old clips, is there somebody that, you know, that you've really? I mean, I can tell you one guy that has stood out to me, and one guy that has solidified who he is.
Who's
okay.
Who's that?
Just watching the Cardinals, Jordan Walker, there's no way that guy doesn't make the team
That's
right
what
now.
I was going to say.
Jordan Walker just seems like I watch him, even when I'm looking at, I know he's ranked like third or fifth, depending on what ranking you look at, MLB's versus some of the others. When I look at even some of the other guys above him, he just seems to be head and shoulders above everybody. It just, to me right now, the Cardinals outfield has to include him. It just cannot not include him. I think you got to give O'Neill the shot because of what he's done in the past, which then really leaves probably Carlson. over Newt Bar, but we'll see. I mean, I just think that Jordan Walker, if he's not starting at the beginning of the season, that's got to be a money play at this point. Unless something really tails off at this point, I don't think that there's anything else. But the guy who also has been impressive, and I actually liked him before he kind of made a name for himself. I like to watch Double A and Triple A, um, online some. So, um, and one of those guys was Macy Wynn. I don't know if you've seen
No,
him,
uh-uh.
but that so he is. I think he is got a lot of like an Ozzie Smith in him. He is defensively he plays short second kind of area. Just does a great job, and his bat seems to. I think I shared this with a lot of my friends. I said, hey, he's the guy I think will wind up in AAA because he still needs just a little sharpness on his bat, but his glove
Right.
is head and shoulders above anybody in his. I mean, he's you know way.
Well, you said the name obviously Smith, so that
Yeah, I mean, from a defensive point of view, he's just he is really really good defensively,
yeah.
and he throws 100 miles an hour. He was a pitcher.
Oh, you know what? I think I saw that. He just had.
Last year in the MLB Future Stars, he threw from second to first, and it was
Yeah,
like clocked at like
I just
102
saw a
or something
clip
like that.
I just saw a clip of him where he bobbled the ball at shortstop yesterday, and still threw the ball from like a standstill, like 96 to first
Yeah.
base, and
I
got
mean,
the guy out. It was incredible.
that's what I said. The defensive side of him is there. But what I was going to say is during the spring training, the offensive side so far seems to be of course, it's spring training, it's different,
Yeah,
but
not for a young coming upper guy.
but a guy like that's trying to get any
Yeah.
type of attention, any type of eyes on him
Mhm.
that he can from management. He's definitely done that. I mean, I think he's going to. I think the hard task for him is that you've already got Tommy Edman, you've already got Gorman, and you got Brendan Donovan. So you got three guys between short, second, and who's going to be the odd guy.
Well, yeah, not even I mean, you can have 26 guys.
Right.
There,
But
so
you're also, I
gonna
think,
carry an extra pitcher or maybe
yeah. I
an
mean, it's
extra infielder.
yeah. But do you want to stop his work from down into AAA then? So getting everyday play. I don't know. I mean, it's just something
Yeah.
they're going to have to think about. But I definitely think at the very least he's getting a lot of eyes right now. He already had them, but I think people have to be paying a little more attention if they're going through there.
Yeah.
So the White Sox have had some interesting stuff too. I don't know if you paid attention to White Sox, but I catch them. I have a friend at the gym, Will, who's a huge White Sox fan. So I've been trying to catch a little bit of their spring training. They've got a couple guys who seem to be doing really really well too. That I'm for the life of me, I can't think of their names, but I think they're going to be all right. If I can remember their names, maybe we can ask Trace about them because I know he played in their organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he might.
That would be good. We'll do a little research for that.
Yeah.
But your original question, who do I have my eye on? And that was who I was probably going to say is Jordan Walker. I don't. Like, what's the point of him going to AAA?
I don't think there is one at this point. I mean,
It's like,
even
it's almost like dangerous. You're giving a guy that knows he doesn't deserve to be there. It's pretty easy for him. I'm gonna imagine. Like, there's only the chance of bad things happening.
I think he's earned every opportunity to be on that. I think he's outplayed almost everybody.
Right.
I watch him and he's just so smooth. He just is, man. He doesn't swing like him, but he kind of reminds me of just that King Griffey smoothness. King Griffey when Junior,
Yeah.
Griffey Junior would hit those long balls, it looked effortless. It was just such a cool swing too. And when I watch Jordan, it's not the same swing, but
Well,
it's that same
He's a
effort.
longer body, so everything looks a little bit longer. Everything.
Yeah, it just has that crisp, really shot. It just really looks awesome. Cardinals gonna love their photo ops on that kid. So he's
Yeah, he should be a good moneymaker for them.
so well. Hey, let's get into the next thing, which was World Baseball Classic. Anything from your thoughts on that? We start today. We have our first game starting later today.
No,
It's gonna be fun.
yeah, it'll be fun, but I don't think there's gonna be any upsets. I think these early rounds you're gonna know pretty much who's gonna win.
I have friends that are big on Cuba.
Cuba. Well, yeah. Well, what's interesting about Cuba is they're always amazing, but nobody has any idea who the players are until they trickle over.
How about Japan?
Well, yeah, Shohei Ohtani.
Well, and Cardinals have a guy over there.
Yeah.
Newbar.
Newt Bar, that's right. Yeah.
South Korea, you got Edmund and I mean, the thing I look at those teams is, you get these names, and you're like, oh, they probably, but then you go, oh, wait, we got a couple good guys over there that could make some noise.
Hold on, I'm gonna try to find the. You sent me a couple weeks ago
Yeah, the
the little bracket.
yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to find that. It's not titled, is it?
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think it is. I didn't put it in this clip, but maybe I should from here on out keep it kind of active so we could throw it up for people.
Anyways, yeah. So, like South Korea, those are all South Korea, Japan, Cuba, Canada, and USA. Like those are the teams that you're gonna see at the end.
Oh,
You're not.
you're not going
you're
to see
not-
Dominica or Mexico?
You're not gonna see Mexico. I don't think you're gonna see the Dominican.
How about uh not Dominican I have no brain. Who's the one that Molina's helping out?
Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
Puerto Rico. No.
they were up there the last one, weren't they? Didn't they make it to the finals?
No, not the finals. It was the semifinals against USA, I think.
Yeah.
But that was 6 years ago. They had better Puerto Ricans back then.
That's true. They had Yachty.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think that
It'll be interesting.
it's going to be Japan, USA,
All right.
Cuba. Let me take Canada out and insert Dominican.
Okay.
And I think those 4 teams are going to be the 4 at the end.
We'll see.
All right, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious. All right, so let's get into our next one, which is you've been making little waves the past 24 hours. Aaron Rodgers, no stranger to us talking about him, and I don't think it's going to be strange until he lands somewhere. But obviously, it seems like Green Bay's now shopping him. I mean, it seems like he's going to be out. And
Well, he went on his little dark trip. Do you remember hearing about that?
I did.
Yeah, I want to hear. I haven't heard how that went for him, or what the details.
I
are.
don't think there's supposed to be details. I think it was just for him to kind of get away, collect his mind, get refocused.
And he came back and said, "I want the Jets." That's why I wanted to talk about that today. Of all the teams, you picked the Jets. That's got to be like it's either going to be the dumbest move ever or the greatest.
Maybe he's been talking to Brett Favre.
Maybe, but like they
Didn't
don't.
Brett Favre
they don't
go to the
playoff-
Jets too? I think
Yeah,
he did, right?
Yeah.
So
But they're not like just of all the organizations.
uh,
I don't know. I don't get it. The only way he's successful there is if he takes them to the playoffs and they win.
you know who was the manager for the Jets the last time they were very, very, really, really successful? It was the same manager that managed the Rams during the Greatest Show on Turf, Dick Vermeil.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, in
That's
fact, if you remember, there was a movie with Mark Wahlberg in it about the kicker. He took a kicker off the street and gave him a tryout, and guy wound up being a kicker. Yeah, and they wound up going to Super Bowl. So
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I like Aaron Rodgers. He's always been a Green Bay guy, but I think I have a lot of friends of mine who are Green Bay fans, and they're all kind of tired of him. They're like, yeah, I'm just ready for him to move on. And it kind of reminds me of the Brett Favre thing when they drafted Aaron Rodgers and he'd been there a couple of years. They're like, yeah, I'm ready for him to, he's still good, but he's not the new guy. He's not the new shiny toy.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah,
And so I think they got that high draft pick that they already got. They want to get him out there to get some reps. He already proved this last season he can handle it when Aaron was gone a little bit. So, I get I get both sides of this equation, and but the Jets, I mean, it makes sense to some degree. I mean, the Jets are competitive. They're, you got to find somebody that needs a quarterback. So,
yeah, but
why not Miami?
I mean, theoretically, with Aaron Rodgers, everybody needs a quarterback, right? Everybody's an option. Should be an option. Aaron should be able to go wherever he wants, except for like 3 teams.
Yeah, well, I mean, what he should have done is called up Tampa Bay. How about Tampa Bay? now that their quarterback's
I'm
retired.
just telling you,
Hey,
any
by the
team
way,
makes more sense than the Jets. I don't understand.
well, I won't disagree, but I thought this was funny. Right before we got on air, I got a little update from Bleacher Report that said that I guess uh, uh, Brady put out a tweet
Yeah.
that said, because everybody's like, is he going to come out of retirement again? And he said anybody just bought his little daughter a kitten isn't looking to come out of retirement. So, anyways, it was kind of funny,
That's funny.
but yeah, so he
He's using a cat.
yeah, apparently there was rumors that maybe he was going to come out of retirement because he's still in playing shape. They haven't seen him gain weight. All this other stuff. I don't know. People like to speculate, especially since he already did it once. So it kind of makes it more, newsworthy, I guess, that maybe he'd do it again. But I think he's done. I think he's ready. Right off into the sunset.
Yeah,
Do
I'm
it.
okay with Tom Brady leaving.
Yeah, I think I think that football will be better for it. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, let's get into a little bit of our faith and culture section because, well, that seems to be what everybody likes talking about, anyways. So there's a lot to talk about recently. We've had a lot of interesting stories. Um, uh, so we'll kick them in here in a minute. So the first one, China gave the United States a pretty stern warning over the past 48 hours, and they seem to be knocking on the door of Taiwan yet again. So, what are your thoughts there? What do you think? What do you think the United States should do at this point? What's the response do you think we should do?
Well, there was a. That thing just went off on my phone was messing it up. The Taiwan and China have a formal agreement, right?
No.
Which ended.
Yeah.
They had one which ended.
Well-
So technically, based on how everything was set up, China has a right to Taiwan.
You think? Taiwan has been its own place. They were exiles from China, the wealthy when it became communism that didn't want to be part of communism. China likes it because I think it's a prideful point, number one. Number two, they don't like the United States so close. And number three, they have a lot of the old artifacts from the ancient kingdoms that they grabbed because they were destroying everything back then. Funny, they destroyed it. Now they want them was saved back, but and I think that they want the economic power. China's most people don't realize this. China's actually economically getting themselves in trouble. Let me give you a little bit of a background on that. Maybe that'll help out. But China, when the United States went through the mortgage crisis in around 2007, 8, 9, right in there, China was heavily invested in mortgage-backed securities and treasuries for the United States. Okay, that was like one of their top investments out of country.
Right.
When all that happened, that really hit them economically. They did not want to be as tied to the United States economically. They wanted to be independent of us more. So they also looked around and they saw opportunity. Opportunity and how? Well, opportunity that other countries were also affected by us and they were disgruntled. Okay, and they were not just disgruntled at the United States, they were disgruntled at the EU. Okay. Countries like Greece and Spain, two in particular ones, they were ones that literally had their banks collapse. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but Greece actually went several days and maybe a few weeks, I can't remember off the top of my head, where they literally didn't have food
Yeah.
because they didn't want to take the EU deal, and then eventually they took a worse deal. But you don't hear about that anymore, and yet they're still in a bad. If they'd continued their trajectory, they would have been in a bad place. But why are we not talking about Greece? Well, China, as things started to recover, they came up with what's called the Sun Belt Initiative. The Sun Belt Initiative is kind of their new Silk Road, let's call it, where they go in, they go to countries like Greece and say, hey, you know what? You don't need to borrow money from the EU to stay afloat and be slaves to them. What we'll do is we'll come in and we'll help you take care of your natural resources. We'll expand out. We'll fly people in here, and in return, you'll get economic favor from it, right? So they went into Spain, Greece. Actually, if you look at COVID, most of the countries that got Italy, most of these countries that got hit first with COVID back in 2000. If you look how we saw it, those European, they were all ones that were part of this Sun Belt Initiative. Some northern African countries, that they'd done. So they were all part of this initiative where they basically went in and they economically provided background, the backing to continue going down their social, their bad policies, stuff like in Greece. A lot of people don't talk about Greece, but Greece doesn't
Well,
encourage.
they defaulted at some point, didn't
Well,
they?
that's what I was saying. They
Yeah.
defaulted and they
Yeah.
literally had their banking system go upside down because they didn't want to take the EU's
Yeah.
deal that they offered them. Eventually, they took it, but then you don't hear about that anymore. They should have defaulted 10 times over by
Right.
now and collapsed. But and the reason why is that Greece, in fact, when all that happened, you could have bought beachfront property for pennies on a dollar because they don't have enough people to fill their country. Greece, in their progressiveness, allowed you to get your parents' Social Security check. In America, it'd be like our Social Security check, I call it. Okay, but your parents' stipend from the government or whatever you want to call it, you could get that as long as you didn't get married and have kids.
So you just live for free off your parents?
So, well, when they pass away,
Yeah.
you you get that money.
Wow.
So they would die, and that's why Greece, for a country like themselves, has one of the lowest marriage rates in the world.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're incentivizing it.
right, and they're not reproducing enough kids. So that's been going on for almost 20 years at this point. By the time,
Side note, Japan has twice as many deaths as births for the first time in its history. Continue. I just read that the other day.
yeah, that's interesting too. But so, anyways, you had the Sunbelt Initiative. You have the expansion into Europe of China. They're going in and getting resources. And of course, it's all initially they make it all sound good, but then once they're addicted to the money and everything that's going on, then it's like, hey, we need a seat at the table. We need to have a little bit of say so in what's going on,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So they get their claws in. Well, why am I talking about that now? Well, they've continued to spend. One of the other policies they started back in the 80s, do you remember what it was? They would kill kids other than one. Every family
Oh,
was
yeah,
allowed
yeah.
one kid, the One Child Act.
One child.
Yeah. So now they've got a problem. They don't have enough kids behind there to support their economic expansion. Okay. So you've got all this money spent out and spread out. So economically, you look at them, they're following the exact same pathway that led to the collapse of the USSR.
Yeah.
The USSR, you had Russia, and they kept expanding to all these European countries and things like that they brought underneath their wing. And economically, it was a hardship because they were trying to support all these other countries and all these policies on the outliers, that they couldn't afford economically. The United States just outspent them because we had GDP. We could keep producing, making, and creating wealth. They had limited ways to do that and resources. So it's another reason why even now, when you look at the Ukrainian war, they've part of they've gotten better economically, but they didn't go beyond the gas and oil. I mean, that's been their big thing on. But if you look at, there's nothing else that Russia's really making. We don't go to them to get chips or other resources. They don't design or make anything really, so they have to get it out of there. So a lot of their equipment that they're bringing into Ukraine that's why the Ukrainians want our equipment, because it's so much more superior. We've got much more accurate, drones and weaponry, tanks, whatever we're giving them it's 10 times. They're still using stuff from the old Cold War 80s,
Yeah.
70s tanks and style stuff. So I go back and say, China, I think the scares that China would go after Taiwan. Okay, and Taiwan is viable to the United States in more than one way. Okay, we've talked about chips. I think the people have always been friendly to the United States. We've had a presence there that allowed us to kind of look in on China over the years. I think it'd be a mistake to walk away from that. I wonder if our president has the gumption to be able to put a wall there, to build that barrier and say, no, not happening. But, China, the United States tensions are high right now. You got the Ukrainian war going on. How many fronts do you want to be battling?
Yeah.
This is where peace through having a big presence. One of the things that made Trump successful is that nobody of these world powers didn't know what to think of him. He gained peace for those 4 years, whether you liked him or not. One of the things he was really good was making all the other countries nuts because they did not know if this guy was a bigger maniac than them. So places like North Korea, places like Russia didn't.
Yeah. Well, it's not even It's just certainty. I mean, they were certain what they were going to get with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. It was the certain. Like if you do this,
Well, sometimes
this
some of they
certainly
weren't.
will happen.
Well, sometimes, and some of it wasn't. I mean, like when he first got into to office, he would put out a comment like um, to North Korea, because that was really the big one back then. When he first took office, everybody was worried about North Korea and the son taking over. Was he crazier than his dad? All that kind of stuff. And so he would put out a tweet like, "Hey, I welcome peace with North Korea and stuff like that." And then the next time, he would say, "I heard that Little Rocket Man
Yeah.
said that he had a button on his desk." Well, Little
Not
Rocket
much
Man should
bigger.
know that I've got one that's a lot bigger. And
That's what I mean, though. His tone was always the same. Like, don't test us.
well, but then he would do. Then he
Now
would say like, "I'm opening up the door to." He would. I think it was back and forth a little bit
Well,
too.
let me ask you a question. If Trump knew about those balloons, if the military did, would he have immediately shut it down?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But that's my point. You know
Yeah.
what he would have done. That's
Yeah,
all.
it's
All those
kinda-
world leaders knew what they did. He would have done something.
Did you ever hear what he said to John Daly? About how his conversation with Putin?
No. Wait, Trump had a conversation with Daley?
Yeah, on the phone,
Yeah.
and his buddy recorded it.
I think I remember like a little tidbit about that. Just hearing about that. I don't remember.
Yeah,
the
when
conversation.
when the war with Ukraine first happened, they asked him. I guess John Daly had asked him. He didn't hear the question. You hear the answer, at least in the clip that I heard. But
Yeah.
John Daly, I guess, had asked him, or his friend had asked him, how did he handle Putin, or how did he avoid war in Ukraine? And he goes, if you go look at the clip, you'll see the first time I met Putin, I put my hand out, I pulled him in, and I embraced him, and then I whispered in his ear. And I'm kind of paraphrasing this, but he basically whispered in his ear, "There better not be any conflicts in Ukraine." And he looked at him and said, "You know what?" And he goes, "Oh, those little golden statues by your palace? I'll make sure the first missile takes those out." And he kind of laughed at him. And he said after that, did he think I was serious? He goes, "I don't know." But he thought I was at least 5% or 10% crazy or serious, and I think that was enough to keep it from happening.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's interesting. It just goes back to that type of persona, that type of thing. It gets me thinking, because I've been watching, as I've told you before, the Jack Bauer movies, and of course there's always a president involved and everything. The season I just finished up, you get the president gets his airplane goes down, and the vice president takes over, and
Yep.
he's kind of more of a pacifist, a lot more cowardly, and
Wait, is that the last episode you left off on that? After the vice president takes over?
No, I just finished that
Okay,
season
okay,
when he
alright,
took over. I finished the whole season out where he brings in David Palmer to help him out, because
yeah.
he needs the president from before the president just got
Man,
shut down to help him
what a
out.
great-
And then
what a great
at the
series.
and then at the end he kind of ditches on him, and you're like, man, isn't that?
Jack
But that's
Bauer.
yeah, it reminds you of today's world, right? I mean,
Yeah, I just think, like Russia did it. China's gonna do it. I think they just have to get their ducks in a row first. I think they probably have to set up something with Russia.
well, I think that, but I don't know if they're going to. I mean, here's I'm going to give you the reason why not.
Like, why not just have a little something in place? Some
I think if
surety.
there's the opportunity, they'll do it. But I think that the thing is they're watching what's going on with Russia. They're watching how the world's reacting to that. That's not going to play favorable to them, because they can't just have them and Russia as much as they'd like to. It ain't going to work. Economically, won't. There's not enough there. Neither country are in a place to do that. Number two, this is what I was saying earlier. Economically, I think there's a hardship there, and if they continue to go down this road, they're going to bankrupt themselves. And I think that's the other, and that's basically what happened with Russia. And I think that is a concern. So I wonder if they go to war with China, or if we start to, if they have the same response as Ukraine, they're already economically kind of hurting. I mean, Russia was kind of built up for this. China is not. So I don't know how that plays out.
Well, it might even be as simple as, I mean, I just think Russia and China are really close. I think closer than people think. I watched President Xi and Putin doing a cooking class together. They were like
Yeah,
chumming it up.
I think that they're very close, but I also think that China will always do what's in the best interest of China, and
Yes.
Putin will always do what's in the best interest of Putin.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think there is communication, whether that communication is, hey, China saying, hey, Russia, we'll wait. We're not against you. We're gonna wait for you to strategize this out. But as soon as you guys go, like, I don't think Ukraine's the last stop. That. I don't think Russia plans on doing more than. I think how the NATO and everything reacts is going to cause all this to transpire. And I think China, knowing that and it being in communications with Russia, will use that opportunity to take Taiwan.
Very well. I mean, it very well could. I mean, I've been very concerned since day one of Biden going in, and when Afghanistan fell, I became very, very worried about Taiwan. So, but on the other thing, I think that as the longer this thing is played out with Russia and Ukraine, just economically for China, they continue to struggle right now. The whole COVID thing, the massive lockdowns. There's a lot there. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, and especially if there is a downturn, do you think they're gonna just go quietly into the night as
No.
their nation?
no,
No, they're gonna go and seek new resources.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, let's move on to the next one, which is January 6th. Did you watch any of that with
Oh,
Elon with Tucker? What an interesting thing. What do you think about? I mean, I kind of, if you've been in the Twitterverse on the conservative side, you've known a lot of this is going on. I mean, you were hearing the stories of like, hey, I turned in my footage, the video footage I had of January 6th to the FBI. I was there. I didn't see any of what they're talking about. This is what I saw. But because their video was already taken, a
Well,
lot of people didn't have.
Well, it's not even. Yeah, they withheld evidence. They withheld.
Well, they grabbed it all first, and so a lot of
Yes.
them, and immediately, so a lot of people didn't make copies, and so a lot of this was all of a sudden now the government's got control of it, so you couldn't even, like
Right.
contradict when you started seeing the stuff that they were the narrative they were putting out, which was this was an insurrection. I always thought that was funny. When I hear people say that, I laugh. I'm like, an insurrection without guns, amazing. And they're like, well, there were bombs. I'm like, really, really, where? Well, they said they found them. I said, really? Well, who did them? I mean, if there's one thing about Washington D.C., you should know that there are cameras everywhere you
Yeah.
go. That
Oh,
place.
yeah. Well, when they said they didn't have a view of the uh, house chambers where the guy shot
Yeah.
Ashley Babbitt, that cannot be true. That has to be a lie. There's not an inch of the grounds. The layout, how the architect drew all of that out, and how the floor plan is. I guarantee you, there's cameras on
Everywhere.
covering every square inch of that place. So that was lie number one I heard, is like, you don't have a camera of the angle. Like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. And then they hired. So I'm just running through everything I remember. They hired a CNN producer to put on the January 6th video, so that he.
Did you even watch that?
Yeah, I
Oh,
watched.
I didn't.
watched
I didn't
part
even
of
watch it. I
I
didn't want to
just-
give them I didn't want to get
Oh,
them
it
to
was
give them the
hilarious.
viewership
It was
because it was so
hilarious.
bad.
It
I
was
knew it was
hilarious.
going to be bad.
It was hilarious. And they added a soundtrack to the videos. So when there was like people, like breaking down the windows of the Capitol, they did the original, and it was just like some noise, and then people like kind of talking, and then the producer, that one that they gave to the January 6th, it was like a, I don't even, the audio they added, it sounded like it was like a sporting event. It was
Yeah.
just, it's absurd.
Well, always was, which is why I think that the two Republicans who were part of that committee are gone. Neither one are.
The shaman. Did you watch any? They.
So I
showed with
watched-
the shaman. They were walking around. The Capitol Police were showing them places
So
to go.
that's from Tucker. So yes, I watched the Tucker one. I actually a little bit of alert. There are a couple people who actually still kept copies of their stuff that have been leaking it for a while, and so I'd actually seen a lot of different views, and it was very obvious that again, insurrection, you don't have guns. When I was watching when it originally happened, they had people walking through taking photos through the Capitol. It wasn't nobody there was destroying things or doing anything weird. And then I thought to myself, just a few weeks ago, you had a bunch of people at the Supreme Court and at different various places, and they were doing a lot more violent stuff.
Well, that was the thing. There was a West Virginia Police Department like christening. They opened this new training facility, and Antifa brought fireworks, bricks,
Yeah.
everything, and they call it peaceful. And they got people in the Capitol with flags, and they're calling it an armed insurrection.
Insurrection,
So,
yeah.
like, I don't understand how any like as an American, you just have to be looking one way to not see that.
Well, it's the support of CNN, MSNBC, and NBC. They're all owned by the same people, basically, right? You got Disney owns 3 or 4 of them. This company owns 3 or 4 of them. Though I did hear that that Elon Musk has put an offer in to buy, I think it was ABC from Disney. So we'll see. But
Well, then on top of that, BlackRock owns Disney.
well, that's what I'm saying. You got the
there's
same,
even higher
yeah. You got
corporations.
people in charge, and so all that kind of gets muddled, and they start pushing their own narrative, and we're finding that out more and more. That's the, Joe Rogan talks a lot about that on his podcast about the murkiness of all that, and then you get the pharmaceutical companies along with the BlackRock. So, I just go back and say I think that. Yeah, there's a certain amount of people out there that they only watch the mainstream media because they were told growing up that it was truthful, and just like there's people who locally will read the post and think it's giving out truth, like and that doesn't mean there aren't some things in there that aren't truth, but there's a lot of things that they tilt or make it fit their narrative, and they've done that for a long time. It's just more and more now because we have other sources. We see it more, like. Before, think about it, back in the 80s, you didn't have Twitter and all that stuff where now we could show that they're absolutely. That's why things like you go back in the 70s and early 80s, that's why we had all these crazy projects that the CIA and FBI did, and we didn't know about for 20, 30 years, that they were running, drug cartels basically out of San Francisco and playing with
They were doing
LSD.
that still. They were still doing that with Obama.
Yeah, and then you had the
What was that, Operation Fast and Furious?
well, that was the gun one. Yeah, you had the gun one with Obama, where they were taking the guns that they got and were using them and then reselling them. Basically, you had the intentional use of American citizens. They created a drug house and a whorehouse out in San Francisco to test LSD for mind
You
control.
know who was part of that project?
Charlie Manson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Your government created Charlie Manson, everybody.
Yeah.
So you know.
and then you got trying to remember. Then you had the precursor that would become known as the what was it over in Afghanistan during the 80s? Gosh, I'm all of a sudden drawing a blank.
Was it for like the poppy field and stuff, or no?
No. It was so the precursor was the movie that Tom Cruise did, where they hired a TWA guy to take reconnaissance photos in South America, and he started out doing that, and the next thing you know, he was dropping guns, and then the people he was dropping guns to didn't want the guns; they wanted drugs, and so he started moving drugs and guns and moving things into the country for the cartels. And have you seen that movie? America, I think Made in USA or American Made or something like that. It's Tom Cruise did it a few years ago. It's a true. I mean, it's embellished in the movie, but it's a true
Based on
story.
true events.
Yeah. It's a true story. What happened? Where the CIA, they were trying to overthrow different people, the Nicaraguan government. All these dictators that were sympathetic to the communist regime. They didn't want them in South America, so they were.
We regime changed? No way.
Oh yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So all that happens.
So you asked me you asked me about China taking over Taiwan, what that looks like.
Yeah.
What how can I be an American and sit there and go, China doesn't have a right to take any land that used to be theirs or they want
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting one because is it really theirs because it was people who left there? But I mean, to me, I hope Taiwan stays Taiwan. I think that it's a good thing for us, but I will also say that, I mean, it's definitely easy to understand why China would want it to.
Yeah.
So.
Taiwan is essentially a colony of people that were defeated by the Chinese to begin with.
Yeah. So going back to January 6th, though, did you see Elon Musk's reply to it? That was kind of interesting. I'm putting that up there so people can see it. His reply was a little interesting to it. they hid it from the people basically. So, it's interesting when we get somebody like that who puts it. One of the things I love about Elon is he's not afraid to tell it how it is, right? So he puts it out there, and that was bold on him. He doesn't seem to care, and I love
Well,
it.
I I I think he's just gonna keep doing this. I think he found his like new rush. Like, I mean, you'd have to imagine at some point, and he's been doing this for 20, 30 years, building businesses, doing the same thing over, and then this little cookie comes along, and he can buy this and be a part of like doing
Yeah.
something else super important.
Well, I think the other part is anytime he puts out a tweet like that, he knows it's clickbait for Twitter and drives people to Twitter. I have to imagine there's some.
Oh, he's all encompassing, knows what's
Yeah,
going on.
he's trying to drive other people to use Twitter. So I have no doubt about that. But yeah, it's kind of definitely another interesting one about that. But yeah, the January 6th stuff is interesting just because it's really funny. You still talk to people who are embedded on the left side, and they'll still tell you it's an insurrection. They'll still tell you, we were going to overthrow the government. You're like, it was a Republican vice president and a Republican Congress that certified the election. We did it later that day. I mean, this is the weirdest insurrection I've ever heard. And then
They even got like permission to protest on the grounds of the Capitol, so like they did it all legally to begin with.
yep, and Pelosi turned down the stuff. The other thing that's weird was that Pelosi had her son with a photography group there to take camera. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff to me on the left side. To me, it looks like Trump was trying to do his big rally, and the left said, "Hey, I've got this great idea. We
Yeah.
can make this into something much bigger than it ever
1,000%.
should have been." And
But just like Tucker Carlson last night, the videos and the way, like, you don't have a January 6th committee and then literally have to lie about every piece of information that you put in there. They lied about another congressman, the person that was doing he was showing the insurrectionists around the building. It was just
Yeah.
a tour. It was just a guided tour.
well, so it goes back.
None of those people were even at the protest or
That's-
the insurrection to begin with. So
Well,
they literally lied about a House member to push their thing. They lied about Congressman Holly. You know that thing about how he was a coward and was running away from all that?
oh yeah.
They cut out the 20 seconds before it was like Democrats and everybody. Literally like 100 people walked through, and then he's the last one.
Yeah,
So it was opposite of the truth.
well, I mean, you knew that from AOC's story, right? She was talking about how she was so scared and all this and that, and it winds up she was like in a building down the road.
Yeah.
Look, they're actors. I mean, AOC is another one where she was at the border crying, and now I don't know if you knew this, but as of today, Biden's saying that he may have to go back to putting the kids, I guess, in cages and all the stuff that using the same policies that
Obama implemented.
yeah, and that Trump kind of had to keep in place for a while. So it's interesting that what goes around comes around, but do people? My question is when do enough people wake up?
Well,
From
what's
this?
the rebuttal? Okay, so if we had somebody that was sitting down and had full faith in the government, was all in on Biden, all in on the January, all in on the Russia probe, all in on, if you presented like a list, even if it was just like 10 or 15 things that just were turned out to be false, flat out lies, like intentional lies, and you just,
Yeah.
what is the rebuttal? How can you defend it?
But they don't believe it's lies. They still believe, because they hear the narrative at it. They, don't believe your lying eyes
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
or your lying ears. I mean, it's weird to me. I agree. You don't have to tell me. I've got, lots of people I know who are still snowed by it, and I just kind of, I'm always, I just sit there and I'm like you. I go, I don't understand how they can see all that's going on
Well,
and not think.
It's not even. It's like it's so. It's bizarre because I used to be. Maybe not publicly, but I used to be like very conservative. My parents grew up conservative. I watched Fox News, but as I've gotten older, in my late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, like, if I sat here and just said like, "Oh, the Republicans are awesome, Democrats do everything, lie," no, I can sit here and confidently say there are evil Republicans that do Weasley things, that lie, cheat, steal,
Yeah.
all of those things. But you sit a Democrat down.
They'll never acknowledge
and
that
they
they're.
will never. Oh, Pelosi's the best. She's so strong. She's so brave. All these people. It's like
Yeah, I agree. We're a party that's not afraid to call people out in our party a lot of times, and the Democrats never call anybody out. Even when they do something completely wrong, they'll find a way to try to
Yeah,
justify
like the
it.
guy that was
All the ones that got their hair cut, right? All the mayors and all the people like Pelosi got their hair cut when everybody was locked down.
but
And
the guy that swindled himself into into
oh yeah, lied. In New
yeah,
York.
yeah, like I don't like that guy. That guy's a schmuck. Get him out of here.
Yeah,
But if it was a Democrat, the people they would be defending him, and
yeah.
it's just
Well, the Republicans, have done their stuff. You definitely see more to try to clean out that kind of stuff. But I mean, again, as you said, we still got. I mean, you know, there's enough dirt going around on both parties, which makes it easier to just point and say, well, you've got your dirt over there, and it's like, yeah, but you're talking about we stepped in a little manure. You're like living in it, okay? We're stepping in it. You're like, oh, it's over your head.
yeah, it's falling from
So
the ceiling.
yeah, I mean, it's a whole different
I don't know.
ballpark there. But all right, well, let's move on to our last story. You actually brought this up, and I'd heard a little bit, but I hadn't really followed it. But you pointed out that there was a kidnapping of 4 people down in Mexico. And 2 were found dead. 2, I guess, got out. That's an interesting story. What do you know about this? Do you know much?
No, and the only reason I brought it up is it was just like kind of like a political, like what if instead of four kidnapped Americans, 2 dead. What if instead of it saying Mexican cartel, it said ISIS has kidnapped 4 Americans at the border, and 2 are dead and 2 are being held at ransom? Like, would there be a reaction to that by the U.S. government?
Well, ISIS has been trying to come in through the border for a long time.
But my
They
point
use the
is, like,
cartels to do
why
it.
as a country do we have these cartels on the border? Like,
Well, that goes back to you've got to
go
secure
blow
the
'em up.
border.
Go blow them up.
Well,
Go blow
number
up
one,
every house you know.
yeah. So let's start with the simple fact: you've got to have a border. You can't be an open border, right?
Yeah, let's go protect Ukraine's border though.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's go do that one. Let's go protect Taiwan's border.
yeah. You
Let's
gotta
go put troops down in Taiwan and
you gotta put
Ukraine.
you gotta put something that clearly identifies where the border is, and not say it's a river.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we just take everybody in Ukraine and just bring them and put off a little section in the U.S. and they can have their own little Ukrainian country here.
Well, there's a lot to that. So I will just say that starting with I'll stick to your argument about the border, because I have to say that I find that very very interesting, especially in light of what I was telling you earlier, that Biden is now having to backtrack even more. My concern is how many evil people have gotten in this country because of that border, because there has to be, and I just keep waiting for some kind of major Jack Bauer 24 type catastrophe to kind of happen. I mean, it just seems like
You don't know if that's already happening. I mean, the
Yeah.
food plants, the processing plants, the
The
pig
trains. We
farms,
talked about the
chicken farms,
trains.
the trains. That could be happening already.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I, I just think, man, if I was a bad actor and I could get into Canada, I could do some damage
Yeah,
with the proper training, like and the right
Yeah.
funds.
yeah, absolutely.
So they're doing it. They're doing it in America. You know they are. They have to be.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing at all about that. It's a very interesting thing. This whole border argument, and I don't understand the other side of it. I've always been like, hey, I love immigrants, but I just want them in legally. Like that's
Let's
seems reasonable.
Let's get a name and a birthday to know who you are and where you're going.
Yeah, and then they always say, well, we want to make sure the parents stay together and the kid. And I'm like, yeah, but like statistically, I think somewhere between 60 and 70% of all kids that come up through the border are actually not with them. They're with some kind of cartel person. They are the drug. They're not smuggling drugs. They're smuggling young kids up to be used as sex slaves and things like that. So. There's just a lot of bad that tends to happen when you have open borders like that, and it just seems to me it's common sense to secure your border, put the wall up, and then, as you said, help Mexico clean up the cartels. Absolutely, I think that would be a smart idea. Continue to help them grow, become economic power. It'd be nice to have another economic power by us.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be intimidated by that. We should welcome it. And
Well, it's gotta happen soon. Those organizations are not going to go away by their own,
no,
and they're only going to make more money. So if you have a
well, I'm being emboldened.
Huh?
And they'll be emboldened. When they're making money and there's not big consequences,
I mean,
and they can get away with it.
think about having, let's just say, I don't know, what's a billion-dollar company? Let's just say, what's a, like Microsoft.
Yeah.
Microsoft makes billions of dollars every year, right? Let's say Microsoft as a company wasn't Microsoft. What if they were selling drugs and all of their employees had guns?
Yeah.
Are you going to do anything about them in our country?
Apparently not with apparently not now. So it's a very interesting, weird time that we're in. I agree. So no arguments here, Scott. I
in
find
my
it-
in my when I said just bring the Ukrainians over here, because I mean, how many million Ukrainians are there?
yeah, I don't know, but you
But
could.
the same amount of there's millions and millions and millions of Mexicans coming in here.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a whole bunch of them
Bring
coming
them
in.
all. Bring them all.
Yeah. We'll have to go get another country.
We got space.
We got space.
We got space.
Well, I definitely some interesting points today on this episode. I uh, I find a lot of these faith and in culture talks that we have kind of interesting. What did you thinking about all that? What did you think of our conversation with Vondina? What an interesting conversation we had with her. I mean, I'm always encouraged whenever I hear all this bad stuff and we kind of go through it. Then I hear something like she was pregnant at 14 in the projects, gets out of the projects, makes something of herself. There's a lot of success stories in America. Ben Carson, another one, born in the projects of Chicago, becomes a successful doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You just look around and you see so many people who have come from little to greatness, or I love the opportunity this country has and provides. I just want to see it be passed on to our kids,
Yeah.
So
Well, that was the one question I had was how early did she believe? Because it sounded like she had a faith in Jesus for
a long time.
a long time. I mean, obviously that has matured over time. But I think it's just a testament of God's faithfulness. Of even though the road that God chose for her has been very difficult, it's apparent that He's been faithful along the way.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Well, let's end with a verse here to kind of wrap up today, and it's actually one from our past week or so at our own church, because it's been one I've kind of been chewing on, and maybe you can give me some thoughts of what if this one's. But it's one of my favorites, and every time I hear it, it gets me thinking. It gets my brain kind of going. But it's when Jesus was right before he was going to raise Lazarus to life, and he's having this conversation with his sister, and he says to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even if he dies, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?
yes.
So, and that is such a gospel-centered statement. But there's a lot in there too. I mean, he's getting ready, as our pastor had been preaching. He's getting ready to prove that he can conquer death, because he's going to call Lazarus from the grave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I mean, what's the cool little tidbit about that is that, and this is what our pastor taught, is that he shouts it. He shouts, "Lazarus, come out!" As a precursor, as a view into the future when he comes back for his saints once again. He'll shout,
yeah,
which is
that's pretty awesome.
yeah. I mean, it was really interesting.
It tells
I
you
never
just how.
thought about that.
Yeah, me too. I found the last couple Sundays very, very. I love our pastor a lot, but I really found the last two full of meat. So I've been chewing on some of that, and this one got me chewing a little bit. Just always enjoyed this passage. Honestly, I always hear Carmen. Do you remember the old '80s singer Carmen?
Mm-mm.
He had a song called Lazarus where he wrote about the whole event, and he reads it at the beginning. I am the resurrection and the life. So every time I hear it, I hear his voice in my head. But I really, really enjoy that verse, because over the years, I've every time I chew on it, I love the way he said that. I am the resurrection. I am the life.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that he's getting ready to do Lazarus, and that it's going to be his last major miracle before going to the cross. Like it's
Yeah, if the more you, I mean, Jesus had it planned out, man. There wasn't one thing. There wasn't one thing that he said that he didn't mean to say.
No, agreed. Yeah, he was intentional about everything that he did, from the way he did it to the way he said it.
Yeah. Well, also, a really cool tidbit on this little sermon on this verse that so he got word that he was sick and was going to die, and then he died, right?
Yep.
While Jesus was away. Jewish tradition, you have to be buried on the third day. You get buried on the third day because it was tradition that they believed that the soul still had this chance to get back with the body if it was within 3 days. But on the fourth day, they buried him because there was no chance. Like there's no chance of resurrection after that.
Right.
And it was funny to hear that Jesus purposely waited to get there on the fourth day to make it even seem more impossible for the people that were in the audience.
Right.
Which was, so like I said, he thinks of everything. He thought of that. Like he could have gone the day before.
Yeah.
But it would have just been missing just that little extra miracle.
Yeah. I agreed.
Component.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting.
He was
That
shattering their traditions at the same time of proclaiming himself to be life. So it was like,
Yeah.
Funny.
That's. Well, hey, thanks for watching another episode. Catch us on Thursday. We really hope to hopefully have Trace at that time, and if not, maybe we can even get one of the other players that'll step in. So maybe we can get Justin to just give us an update too. That'd be awesome. So
yeah, we'll give Justin a week or so.
to recover, get his
so he
face
can
back.
Talk. I don't even know if he can talk right now. He's got stitches and gauze.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll give him some ice time.
Well, hey, thanks guys for watching. Don't forget to
subscribe and like, or like I said, like and subscribe. Any order, like and subscribe.
And also don't forget to share. We've been noticing a lot of shares going out there. I've had a few people asking how we're doing, Scott.
Yeah.
And we have seen a
How are we
huge.
doing?
We've been doing explosive growth the past
Explosive.
the past week or
Those are
so.
good words.
So we've seen explosive growth, and I think it's only going to continue to get better with everything that we see going forward. I hope everybody's enjoying our discussions, because they're just fun discussions, and our guests when we have them on. And I think they're gonna like some of the other stuff coming on. I'm really excited about these 30 devotionals that we're working on. I've got a few other things that I'm waiting for some answers on. I can't wait to hopefully share very shortly on some more of that kind of stuff that'll be part of what we're doing. So keep your eyes and ears peeled, and we will catch you guys on the next episode. So
Yeah, or whenever. Just
All right.
come by every once in a while. See what we got to say.
All right, catch ya.